And then I started to delve into this topic, and finally I just see the resemblance, and I hope I can present it to you today. Okay, so first I would like to give like an overview of the script transmission, so all the way back to this Aramaic script. And Professor Nicholas Sims-Williams also have a very nice article talking about the transmission from Aramaic script to the Sogdian script. And then today I'll just elaborate on the afterlife of the Sogdian script, so from Sogdian and then Old Uyghur, Mongolian, and Manchu script. So there were like four main scripts for writing Sogdian language. The first one is the national script, because it was also used for like writing quite a lot of Buddhist text. So it's also called the Sudla script. And this is the script we are going to like elaborate on today. And also for writing this, for writing texts in Sogdian, we got the Manichaean script for writing like for writing Manichaean texts in Sogdian, and also we got the Syriac script for writing Sogdian. For writing Christian texts in Sogdian, and also we got some Brahmi script text in Sogdian, which mainly was about like the medical text, this kind of thing. And then from the Sogdian script, then the text borrowed the Sogdian writing and to kind of like adopted and then adapted to write the Turkic language in the Old Uyghur script, and then was passed on to the Mongolian and then to the Manchu people eventually. So.
Long flight?
Sorry?
From India, long flight, right? Like 17 hours or something?
I'm from New York.
Right. Originally though. First interview?
No.
Just so you know, this role is very client.
So first, like before talking about the transmission from the Sogdian to the Manchu writing system, first I would like to say a little bit about the writing orientation of Sogdian language. There's a shift of the writing orientation of Sogdian. Approximately, it took place from the 5th century, so from horizontal writing to vertical writing. We got this record written by Xuanzang. So when he traveled to the Sogdiana in 630 AD, he wrote about like the customs of Sogdian people, and he said the primary script for Sogdians is brief, originally 20 or so alphabets. They have rough written records and read the text vertically. So as we can tell by like Xuanzang's record that by in the 7th century, like even Sogdian people in Sogdiana were writing their languages vertically, but we also have this Sogdian ancient letter, which was also, like, I think several pieces are still on display of the Silk Road exhibition at the British Library. So of the Sogdian ancient letter, it's more possible that this is a horizontal writing rather than a vertical writing, because if we compare the pattern of the Aramaic letter and also of the Bactrian letter and this Sogdian ancient letter, we can see this wide margin allowed on the right side of the manuscript. And this was kept for like writing the continuation of the text, although this picture I showed here didn't really like have the continuation of the text on the margins. But if you check several pieces on display at the British Library, some of them still contain like the continuation of the text, and they were writing like on the margins of the right side of the manuscript. And this is a strong evidence that suggests that the patterns actually follow the patterns of Aramaic letter and also the Bactrian letter. So this is more likely a horizontal writing. But we still have quite a lot of textual evidences that suggest a vertical writing of Sogdian language. So, for example, this piece, although it is now like shown horizontally, but if we turn the page, if we turn the image clockwise, like even people without any knowledge of Sogdian language could see why this is more likely a vertical writing because of the direction of the image in the middle, and also because I don't know if it's very clear, but we got some of the Brahmi letters over there, which were written vertically, which suggests that of this piece, like the writing orientation of the Sogdian language of this piece is like vertical writing rather than horizontal writing. Okay, and then But after like the 5th century, when there's a shift from horizontal writing to vertical writing, there was still quite a lot of horizontal writing, like examples of horizontal writing left. And this piece is the R.P. Shaker manuscript that can be dated back to the late 10th century. And as you can see here, because like the Brahmi, this is a bilingual manuscript. And as you can see, the Brahmi letters were written like horizontally from right to left and from top to bottom. And the Sogdian part of this text are also the same. Like if you read it, from right to left and from top to bottom, it actually aligns very well with the flow of the Brahmi text. So this piece was like more likely a horizontal writing, which suggests that maybe in the late 10th century there was still like horizontal writing pieces of Sogdian manuscript left in the Turfan area, and also. The text borrowed the vertical writing orientation of the Sogdian language in order to write the Old Uyghur alphabets. For example, from this piece, like judging by the direction of the image here, we can even people without any knowledge of Old Uyghur language could tell that this piece was written like vertically and to be read from top to bottom and from left to right. Okay, then I would like to just talk about the transmission between the Sogdian writing to the Old Uyghur writing, which might take place in the 8th to 9th century. Although we don't have like a direct historical record that suggests this borrowing actually happened, but we got some of the textual evidences. So the first one is the Bogot inscription. This inscription, as you can see here, so we got it's actually of two sides. So for, one side is like written in Sogdian, so in Sogdian script and also the Sogdian language, and the other side is of Brahmi Mongolic. And this piece was erected in the 6th century and dedicated to Taspat Kagan, whose reign was from the 572 to 581 AD. And this might suggest that in the 6th century, that Turkic Kagan actually, Turkic people actually had had a certain knowledge of Sogdian language and also the Sogdian script and its convention, and most of which they adopted after they moved from Mongolia to the Turfan area, where they created their Old Uyghur writing based on their knowledge of the Sogdian writing. And there's also one evidence that might suggest this borrowing from Old Uyghur from Sogdian to Old Uyghur actually happened is this letter Lamed. So the original Aramaic Lamed just looks like the Roman letter L, and then the Sogdian, the Sogdian Lamed is like a reversed L, and the Old Uyghur here, although it might really look very similar, but if we turn, because Old Uyghur is like vertical writing, so if we turn the image clockwise, you can see its resemblance with the Sogdian Lamed. So this character originally in this letter originally in the Aramaic language was used to indicate the sound, the lateral sound. But the Sogdian people, when they adopted and adapted the Aramaic writing system, they used this letter Lamed to indicate their voiced and also voiceless fricative, and then it was borrowed by the text to indicate the fricatives also in the Old Uyghur language. Because for the text, they also have this lateral sound. So what is the solution of their lateral, the indication of the lateral sound is that in the Old Uyghur language, the lateral sound was represented by a hooked lash. So as you can see here, the lash is like two teeth, and then they just simply add like a diacritic, so add a hook to the right side of the R in order to make a lateral sound. So this also suggests that Old Uyghur directly borrowed their writings from the Sogdian script. And on the right side is like a manuscript that I found very interesting. This was in the like Turfan collection, and this is like a trilingual kind of like a dictionary of like classical Chinese and also Old Uyghur and Brahmi script. And you can see here like maybe someone was using it for learning Chinese or maybe learning Old Uyghur, that they got the different words for classical Chinese and the corresponding word in the Old Uyghur with the Brahmi there as an annotation of sound. Okay, and then is of the Old Uyghur, of Mongolian people borrowing the Old Uyghur script. This would actually took place in the 13th century, and we have a very clear historical record of that. That mainly is this person named Tatatunga, and he was a Uyghur, and he was deeply knowledgeable in the script of his homeland. So when Genghis Khan launched a campaign, and his country Naiman was conquered by Genghis Khan, and this person, Tatatunga, fled with the national seal, but was soon captured. But Genghis Khan kind of like was really moved by his loyalty and also filial piety, so he ordered Tatatunga to stay by his side and told Tatatunga to teach the Old Uyghur scripts to the Mongolian prince in order to to write the Mongolian language using the Uyghur script. And as you can see, when the Mongolians, when they borrowed the Old Uyghur script, So here we also got the lash I just mentioned, the lash here. So they basically borrowed it from like Old Uyghur, and ultimately can be traced back to the Sogdian language. But here is their solution of writing the lateral sound in the Mongolian language, is that they kind of like omit the actual body of flash, but rather they left a teeth and this hook here in order to indicate the lateral sound in the Mongolian language.
Shelters have this secret about pee pads they don't want you knowing. I've been wasting $80 monthly on disposable pads.
Okay, and then is when the Manchus first, like before before the Manchus borrowed the Mongolian writing system to write the Manchu language, they were using this is called the Jurchen script. So as you can see, this is clearly it can be clearly traced back to the classical Chinese, and some of the characters actually was the same as the classical Chinese characters. For example, the months and also days, but this Jurchen script, as it showed here, is actually quite difficult, and it's very difficult to kind of learn it and also to disseminate it to all the Jurchen people. So this script, although they were created they were created in the period of Jin Dynasty, but it was soon abandoned because of its difficulties. So when Nur Hachi actually united all the Manchu tribes, and back in the time, the Jurchen script was seldom used. So Nur Hachi had this idea of to create another easier writing system of Manchu language. So he ordered his ministers to write the Manchu language by altering the Mongolian script. But his ministers just simply found it too difficult to do that. So Nur Hachi himself actually gave the instructions of how to alter the Mongolian script into writing Manchu, and his ministers followed his instructions and then created the Manchu writings afterwards. But when it was first created, it completely followed the Mongolian writing system. So there's because if you have any knowledge of the Mongolian language, then you would know certain vowels and consonants are not distinguished in the Mongolian writing. So when the Manchus came to apply the Mongolian writing system to write their own language, they soon found out that there's a huge problem with it, because it can be really confusing. Like here, we got this ba or but actually it's a b here. So because the vowels, the a and is not are not distinguished in the Mongolian writing, so they need to find a way to distinguish between the vowels and also the consonants in the Manchu language. And then they just, and to the right side, this image is like an updated version of Manchu writing later, also in the 7th century, when Nurhaci actually found out the problem. So he ordered his minister Dahai to kind of like updated the Mongolian writing system in order to write the Manchus more accurately. So because like then they use like dots and also circles to distinguish vowels and consonants, because if you don't use like dots or circles, then this ba in Manchu means place, and the bu in Manchu just is an accusative case marker. So it can be really confusing if you don't use the circles and dots. So this kind of diacritics to distinguish between the vowels and also the consonants. So this is how they updated the Mongolian writing system, and for Manchu people to write their languages in the Manchu script. And here, I would like to give you like a very thorough idea of how this scripts actually look quite similar. So here is the Old Uyghur alphabet. This is the vertical writing of it. And so if we turn it clockwise to make it like horizontal and to compare it with the Sogdian script, as you can see, there's a very clear resemblance between the Sogdian script and also the Old Uyghur script. For example, like we just mentioned about the lash and also the hook lash. And for example, the b sound in the Old Uyghur script is the same with the p in Sogdian script. And also if we check like vowels, for example, like u is also the same with the with here the vowel, the W here in the Sogdian script. And then to compare it with the Mongolian and also the Manchu writing, we can see that it actually developed over time. Like when the Manchus borrowed from Mongolia and when Mongolians borrowed from the Old Uyghur alphabets, they actually add quite a lot of things in order to make this writing system to be more adapted to write their own languages. And as you can see, like eventually, like the Manchu writing system is more complicated than the Mongolian and also the Old Uyghur writing system. Okay, to conclude, this research highlights the significant influence of the Sogdian script, originally from Sogdiana, on the writing systems of several cultures along the Silk Road. The script was not only used by the Sogdians, but was also adopted and adapted by the Turks for the Uyghur script, which subsequently influenced the traditional Mongolian alphabet and ultimately the Manchu writing system. And second, the study emphasizes the historical continuity in the use of the Sogdian script across different languages and cultures. It seeks to analyze how the adoption of the script in each new linguistic context was closely related to its previous uses, illustrating the interconnectedness of these cultures through the transmission of the writing system. And thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to all your comments and questions.